It started as an ordinary day. Nothing special, nothing worth remembering. But sometimes, the smallest detour can reroute a man's entire life. He wasn't supposed to be in this town. The highway had been closed for repairs, and his GPS lazily pointed him onto a crack side road, deeper into the kind of forgotten community most travelers never notice. The signs were sun-bleached, the storefronts empty. A single gas station stood with one pump wrapped in yellow tape, the other wheezing like it might give up at any second. He slowed the car. Something about the silence here was heavier. The main street stretched out in front of him. A diner with a flickering neon sign. A church with boards nailed across its doors. Houses crouched along the edges of the road like tired animals, sagging with age, their paint peeled to gray skeletons. And then he saw it. At first glance, it was just another rundown house. 2 stories, white once, maybe, though now it was closer to the color of old bones. The porch sagged, one of its railings bent. The fence leaned inward as though the earth had shifted under it. The windows were blind with dust. But the moment his eyes landed on it, his chest tightened. A wave of recognition slammed into him so suddenly that he had to ease the car to the side of the road. He knew this house. He couldn't explain how, or why, but his body reacted before his mind could catch up. His palms were sweating. His heart knocked against his ribs. He whispered to no one in particular, "I've seen this place before." He pulled over completely, engine idling, staring at the house like it might vanish if he blinked. Details leapt out at him. The way the porch steps sagged, he knew the third one would creak under weight. The shutters on the upstairs window, one was nailed unevenly, just slightly off. Even the fence, warped and cracked, he remembered brushing his hand against it, the splinters catching his skin. But that was impossible. He had never been to this town in his life. Still, the memories pressed against him like heat rising from the pavement. He stepped out of the car. Gravel crunched under his shoes as he stood, staring at the house. The air felt wrong here. Thicker. As if the entire street was holding its breath, waiting. He took a hesitant step forward. His throat went dry. The closer he got, the stronger the sensation became. A tug at the base of his skull, pulling him forward. He could almost hear something, faint, indistinct, like voices murmuring behind the walls. He stopped at the fence. For a long time, he simply stood there, breathing, staring at the peeling paint and the dark windows that seemed to watch him back. It made no sense. He shouldn't feel this way. This was just an abandoned house in a town no one cared about. But his body trembled as though it had stumbled onto sacred ground. He tried to laugh it off, a weak sound that fell flat in the empty street. "Get a grip," he muttered, turning back toward his car. But even as he slid into the driver's seat, even as he pulled the door shut and gripped the wheel, his eyes flicked back to the house in the rearview mirror. It was still there, still staring, still calling. He drove away, pressing harder on the gas pedal than necessary. The road bent and twisted, carrying him out of town, away from the boarded windows and the sagging fences. But no matter how many miles fell behind him, the house remained fixed in his mind, like an image burned into his retinas. He muttered under his breath as the landscape blurred past. "I've been here before. I know I have." The words chilled him more than the silence of the road. Because he didn't know why he'd said them. And he didn't know who he was trying to convince. For days he tried to push it out of his mind. The house, the street, the suffocating silence of that town. But memory has a way of sharpening when it doesn't belong to you. He sat at his desk at work, pretending to review spreadsheets. His fingers tapped a pen against the paper, but when he looked down, he realized he hadn't been writing numbers at all. He had drawn the house. The sagging porch. The tilted fence. Even the crooked shutters. He blinked at it, his chest tightening. He hadn't meant to draw it. His hand had simply moved on its own. "Nice doodle," a voice said over his shoulder. He startled. Melissa, his co-worker, peered at the page with a curious frown. "What is that? Haunted house?" He forced a laugh. "Just something I saw on a drive." "Well, it looks depressing. Maybe stick to palm trees next time." She patted his shoulder and walked away. He quickly folded the paper in half, hiding the sketch like it was evidence. That night, over dinner, Anna noticed too. She always noticed. You're quiet again, she said, stabbing at her salad with a fork. Work bothering you? He shook his head. No. It's nothing. She studied him for a long moment, then set her fork down. You've been off ever since that trip last week. You barely sleep, you stare into space, you hardly talk to me anymore. Something's wrong. Just tell me. He opened his mouth. Closed it again. How could he explain it? How could he tell her that a house he'd never stepped into was clawing at his brain? It's just stress, he lied, forcing a smile. I'll be fine. Anna didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. That night he dreamed, or maybe he didn't dream at all. He was standing outside the house again. The wind rattled the fence. Somewhere inside, a door slammed. He could hear footsteps above him. Voices, too muffled to make out. He woke up drenched in sweat, the echo of those footsteps still pounding in his skull. By morning, the decision had already been made, though he didn't admit it out loud. He had to go back. The drive felt shorter this time. The roads familiar, though he knew they shouldn't be. He told himself it was only to prove something, that if he saw the house again, it would lose its grip. That once he faced it, the obsession would fade. But deep down, he knew better. The town greeted him with the same dead quiet. The diner's neon sign still flickered. The boarded church leaned forward as if listening. And at the end of the street, the house waited. He parked. The air felt thicker, heavier than before. This time, he wasn't alone. An old man sat on the porch across the street, rocking slowly in a chair. His clothes hung loose on his thin frame, and his eyes, pale and sharp, seemed to have been waiting for him. The man raised a hand. Afternoon. He hesitated, then nodded back. Afternoon. You're back, the old man said. His voice was dry, brittle. The words made his skin crawl. Back? The man tilted his head, studying him. Thought I'd never see you again. You sure do look the same, though. Same eyes. Same way you stand. I think you've mistaken me for someone else, he said carefully. The old man chuckled. Charles Redmond. That was your name. Lived right there in that house. Everyone knew you. Hard man to forget. His mouth went dry. I'm not. He stopped. The protest felt hollow. The old man rocked back in his chair, unfazed. Course, they said you died a long time ago. Strange seeing you walking around again. The silence between them stretched, heavy as lead. He turned back to his car, heart racing. You're mistaken, he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. He climbed inside and slammed the door, hands trembling on the steering wheel. But when he glanced in the rearview mirror, the world tilted. For a second, only a second, his reflection wasn't his own. The hair was darker. The jaw sharper. The eyes colder. It was a face that wasn't his, and yet it was. He blinked, and the vision was gone. Only his own pale, sweating face stared back. The drive home was a blur. He gripped the wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The old man's words echoed in his skull. Charles Redmond. You lived right there. Everyone knew you. By the time he reached his apartment, he felt like he'd been hollowed out. Anna was waiting inside, her arms crossed. You disappeared all day, she said. Where were you? Nowhere. Don't lie to me. He couldn't answer. His throat was too tight. He brushed past her, retreating to the bathroom. He splashed water on his face, trying to breathe, trying to shake it off. He looked up into the mirror, half expecting to see that stranger's face again. This time, it was only his own. But the thought lingered, poisonous and undeniable. If the old man was right, if the reflection was right, then maybe he wasn't who he thought he was. Curiosity is a cruel thing. It doesn't whisper. It digs. It gnaws. It doesn't stop until it has eaten through every wall you've built. He told himself he wouldn't go back. That whatever the old man said, whatever he saw in the mirror, it was stress, exhaustion, imagination. He told Anna he was fine, that work had just been overwhelming. He smiled when she demanded one. But the moment she left the room, the mask fell. He couldn't let it go. And so, one gray afternoon, he found himself standing inside the local library. The place smelled of dust and old paper, of things that hadn't been touched in years. Shelves leaned under the weight of books. The only sound was the soft hum of a ceiling fan and the distant rustle of a page turning. He approached the desk. The librarian was a woman in her 60s, her hair pulled back into a bun. She peered over her glasses as he asked about town records, obituaries, anything from the 1960s or 70s. She nodded, led him to a back corner, and gestured at a stack of microfilm reels and newspapers sealed in brittle plastic. Hours slipped by. He scrolled through headlines of county fairs, farming accidents, school plays. And then, local man Charles Redmond dead at 34. The letters struck like a blow to the chest. He froze, eyes darting across the faded column. The article was brief, almost careless. Charles Redmond, a local resident, was pronounced dead at his home last night. Sources indicate no foul play, though details remain unclear. Survived by wife Evelyn and young daughter. Funeral services to be held Friday. His heart hammered. His throat went dry. There it was. Proof. Not imagination. Not stress. A name. A man. A death. And yet, it felt less like discovery and more like remembering. He requested more. Old photographs. Records. Anything with the Redmond name. The librarian obliged, returning with a small cardboard box of archived photos. The edges were yellowed, curled. He sifted through them one by one. Portraits of schoolchildren, local parades, family gatherings. Then he froze. A group photo, men outside the diner, arms slung around each other. And there, in the middle, was him. Or someone who could have been him. The jawline. The brow. Even the posture, slouched slightly, hands tucked loosely in pockets. The eyes looked straight into the camera with a weight he recognized. Written in fading ink beneath the photo, Charles Redmond, 1969. His stomach lurched. He dropped the photo back into the box, hands trembling. For a moment he thought he might be sick right there in the library. He shoved the photo away and walked out, heart pounding, the air suddenly too heavy to breathe. That night, Anna tried again. "You're scaring me," she said softly as he sat in silence on the edge of their bed. "You hardly talk. You're gone half the day and won't tell me where. Please! Just tell me what's happening." He opened his mouth. He wanted to tell her everything. About the house, the old man, the obituary, the photograph. But the words jammed in his throat. If he told her, she'd never believe him. Worse, she'd think he was losing his mind. "It's nothing," he whispered. "Really?" Anna's eyes glistened, but she nodded. She didn't push. She just lay down, her back turned, silent. He sat awake long after, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing, wondering how much longer he could pretend. The next day, he made the decision he'd been avoiding. If he wanted answers, if he wanted to put this madness to rest, he had to face the house. Not from the car. Not from the fence. From the inside. Night fell. The town was quiet when he parked again at the curb. No old man on the porch across the street this time. Just silence. The house loomed above him, pale in the moonlight, its windows reflecting nothing. He crossed the sagging fence. The wood groaned beneath his hand, splinters biting his palm, exactly as he remembered. The porch steps creaked. The third one louder than the rest. His stomach knotted at the sound. He knew it before it happened. He stood at the door, heart hammering. It wasn't locked. The knob turned under his hand as though it had been waiting for him. He stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with dust and the faint scent of mildew. The floorboards groaned under his weight. The living room spread out in shadow, furniture covered in sheets, shapes like ghosts frozen mid-motion. And then, a whisper. So faint he almost thought he imagined it. "You don't belong here." His blood ran cold. He spun around. The room was empty. Silent. But the words had been real. He knew they had. He swallowed hard, stepping deeper inside, his body trembling with fear, and something else. Recognition. Like he had just come home. After the house, nothing was the same. He returned to the city, but the city no longer felt like home. His apartment walls pressed too close, the streets too loud, the people too unfamiliar. Everything around him seemed foreign, like he had been dropped into someone else's life. At first, he tried to fake it. He went to work. He ate dinner with Anna. He told himself the house was just a house. That the mirror was just glass. That the whispers were only exhaustion. But lies rot fast. At his desk, he found himself sketching again, this time not the house, but faces. A woman with sad eyes. A child with a crooked smile. He filled page after page before realizing he had written a name beneath each sketch. Evelyn. Clara. He didn't know how he knew the child's name. But his hand wrote it with certainty. At night, he woke with words on his lips. Not his own. I'll make it right. I didn't mean to. Evelyn, please. Anna woke once to hear him whispering into the dark. She sat up shaken. Who are you talking to? He blinked dazed, as if surfacing from underwater. What? You said a name. Her voice trembled. Evelyn. Who is Evelyn? He couldn't answer. He turned away, pretending to sleep. But he felt her eyes on him for hours after. Days blurred. His reflection grew stranger each morning. Sometimes it was subtle, his jaw sharper, his eyes darker. Other times, the mirror gave him back a face that wasn't his at all. Charles, staring with cold recognition. And worst of all, he had stopped being afraid of it. He was starting to accept it. Anna found the letter on a Thursday. She had been cleaning the apartment when she discovered the folded paper inside his desk drawer. At first, she thought it was an unfinished journal entry. But when she unfolded it, her stomach dropped. It was written in his handwriting, but the words were not his. My name is Charles Redmond. I have come back. I never left. When he came home that night, Anna confronted him, the letter shaking in her hand. What is this? Her voice was sharp with fear. He stared at it, then at her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he whispered, It's the truth. Anna's face went pale. Do you hear yourself? Do you know how insane this sounds? I'm not insane, he said, his voice firmer than he expected. I remember. I remember everything. Evelyn. Clara. The house. My death. Tears filled Anna's eyes. You're not Charles. You're you. You're losing yourself in some fantasy, and it's destroying us. He stepped forward, reaching for her, but she flinched back. Don't touch me. Her words landed like a blade. He froze, then lowered his hand. I have to go, he said quietly. Anna's lips trembled. If you walk out that door, don't come back. He didn't answer. He just turned, picked up the small bag he had already packed without realizing it, and walked out. The door closed behind him with finality. The road carried him back like a current, straight to the town, straight to the house. It looked the same as always, silent, sagging, waiting. But now, it no longer felt foreign. It felt inevitable. He stepped through the door as though returning from a long trip. The dust, the decay, the shadows, all of it wrapped around him like a blanket. Upstairs, the mirror waited. He stood before it, breath steady. His reflection stared back, no longer fractured, no longer delayed. Charles, whole and solid, smiling faintly. He lifted a hand. The reflection lifted its hand in perfect sync. No delay. No difference. Just him. He felt a strange calm wash over him. This was who he was. Not a man of the city, not Anna's partner, not an office worker behind a desk. He was Charles Redmond. He had always been Charles Redmond. The whispers in his head grew louder, not haunting now, but welcoming. You're home. You're home. You're home. He smiled, his own smile, Charles's smile, and whispered, "Yes." And in that moment something shifted. The air grew warm. The dust seemed to fade. For a heartbeat, the house was alive again, walls painted, floors clean, lights spilling through curtains. Evelyn's laughter echoed down the stairs. A child's footsteps padded across the hall. He turned toward the sound, eyes burning with recognition. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm back." The vision flickered, but the feeling remained. The house had claimed him. Or maybe he had claimed it. Either way, he would never leave again. Days later, in the city, Anna filed a missing person report. Police searched. Co-workers worried. Flyers went up. But no one ever saw him again. The world wrote him off as another man who walked out one day and never came back. But in the broken house at the edge of the forgotten town, a figure sometimes moved past the windows. A man, smiling faintly, as though content at last. If you looked close enough, you'd swear he was whispering something. A name. Charles.